Oh, we watched Watch the Water, by the way.
You did?
Yeah, I sure did.
Yeah.
Man.
It's like the symbolism of the whole cobra thing. And a lot of times the cobra or the snake itself is associated with the kundalini. So it's almost like a blockage to your heart chakra, which connects you, and the rising of your kundalini. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, whoa, like to be attacked from the heart chakra and the crown. Yikes.
You're listening to The Parallel Paths, a podcast designed to elevate your mind, body, and spirit so that you can get everything you want out of life. The only question is, are you ready?
Like,
But again, you talking about a couple, we really being hit on every level, every chakra. It don't matter. Like, I mean, you think about the waves and stuff that we can't see around us. Like, you don't ever know if it's affecting your throat. It could be affecting your third eye. We already talked about the root being hit with music. Your sacral is constantly being
We're getting hit in every way. We're getting hit by every chakra. We're getting hit in every element. We're getting hit in every sense. Like whatever way they
warfare, man. That's definitely why it's time to shift how we think and how we've been operating, because it hadn't been serving us. So hence why we're doing this episode, which welcome back to the Parallel Paths podcast. And I know we didn't say our intro at the beginning because we kind of got deep, but yeah, that's the purpose why we're here. Like just trying to provide tools and remedy for everything that we've been faced with on a daily basis.
Yeah, I think our society is definitely, like, the patriarchal system is trying its damnness to thrive and to survive. And I like the way, like, in the Western body, Eastern mind, the author talks about, like, how basically we're like the children of divorce. So it's like, at the beginning of times, you had the archetypal mother that was very present. And then, of course, over time, the collective mind of Western civilization began to kind of X her out. And then, we're the product of that marriage, and like a divorce has taken place. And so now the mother is exiled, and then we grow up with the father. And in the father's house, it's all about strength and pride, the more young qualities. And we don't talk about the mother in our father's house. She's done away with. And I think with there being a resurgence in reintegrating the archetype of the mother, you can see the fight with that, because at the heart chakra, we're literally meeting the bottom three with the upper three. Or if we want to do macro and microcosm, you have heaven and earth meeting, and they meet right there in that center. Or we're talking about the body and the soul meeting right there at that center, the feminine and the masculine. So this is, and even if you look at the symbol of the heart chakra, you have the triangle, one that's upside down, and then the one that's right side up. So it's literally the meeting of those two polarities that meet in that space. And that's where we get the unity. The birthing comes from those energies coming together, and then boom, you have humanity. And so with there being that attack on incorporating the feminine aspect that makes us whole, you can see where the patriarchal system is just trying to keep it the lower three, just only focused on the masculine side of things, and trying to keep us from recovering from that archetypal divorce that we've gone through collectively.
And one thing I want to say, it's not even a man versus woman thing. It's an energy imbalance, but it's really the heart chakra is balancing that feminine and masculine aspect of things. Right. So it's like you said, it's merging to think and to feel. And I know that's one thing on the masculine side is we're always taught to think logically, and we kind of discount our feelings in a sense. So just even on a male perspective, I know from a Black male perspective, we're definitely taught to disregard our feelings at an early age. So one thing as I've gotten older is even just figuring out different things within my own body. I had to figure out how to feel certain things. Mm-hmm. And I know until I was probably 21, that's the first time I got my heart broken. And until then, I'm like, dang, didn't even know I was feeling anything. So certain things have to happen, I think, and we have to pay attention to our body and what it's telling us, because it's constantly sending messages, but it's really just trying to balance those energies within. And each one of us has both elements or both sides to that, the yin and the yang. So it's really trying to figure out the balance. And again, we always go back to it. There's many modalities, many different ways to heal, but you got to find out whatever works best for you. You have to be the person who's doing the experiments on self, as opposed to letting somebody else do it on you.
Mm-hmm. I know one part of the heart chakra too is based on how well you forgive and forgiveness, if I'm correct. So I'm actually curious to try to figure out, like, what are some of the tools that we've learned to kind of learn how to forgive, and then how were you even taught how to forgive?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think about, so there's this term called heart-brain coherence, and it's like one of the healthiest states of mind. I can't remember who coined the term. I know Joe Dispenza uses it, but
it's all our info. It don't matter.
Right.
It's all our stuff.
So basically it's about, what your heart desires. If you're thinking, so using your mind, if you're thinking and doing things that align with what your heart desires, what your heart knows to be true, what your heart is producing out of a space of love, then you're at your healthiest, happiest state. And I think when it comes to forgiveness, that's our mind, like that ego saying, don't forgive because I need to continue to defend myself. I need this person to know they did me unjust. So it's going to want to hold on to that. But if you come down to that heart space and realize that the negative feeling that you're feeling is not because of what they did, it's because you're holding on to something that no longer even exists except for in your mind. But realizing, okay, well, if I want to feel better, I have to forgive. I have to let go. And you're not doing it. Again, people say you're not doing it for the other person. If you're holding a grudge, it's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to be hurt by it. So I think, like, when it comes to forgiveness, it takes you having that awareness of how you feel, again, which some of us don't, but having some level of awareness, noticing that how I want to live and how I want to feel is not how I'm feeling right now, noticing that there is a disconnect, and then being willing to put that ego aside to get yourself into a good feeling place. So realize that I need to take responsibility for how I feel. I can't change what happened in the past. What I can change is how I'm feeling right now and what I want to focus on.
We talk about it every episode, but even with that, it's just having grace with self and even being forgiving of self. So definitely agree.
I agree. I think in order to even move into the heart space of the heart chakra, you have to have mastered some of the chakra before it, which was the solar plexus. So a big part of being able to have compassion and forgiveness towards others is to first deal with ourselves. So we literally have to know thyself, know our desires, understand our boundaries, know our fears, and know ourselves more intimately before we can express that same energy outwardly. Because I think a part of forgiveness requires understanding where other people are coming from. And compassion allows you to do that, because once you've understood yourself in the solar plexus chakra, now you have enough energy left over for you to understand somebody else. And in order to forgive them, you're going to kind of have to empathize with what they've done to you or how you feel they've wronged you in some sort of way in order to allow a place for reconciliation. And understanding. You just got to be willing to step outside of you and leave space for the other person. And I think the heart chakra allows us to do that. We get to go from the active qualities, because actually the solar plexus and the heart chakra are both active qualities. If we're considering from an elemental standpoint, fire and air are both expressive and active. But the difference with the solar plexus and the heart chakra is that you go from the doing of the solar plexus into the being of the heart chakra. And you have to have space for that. If your solar plexus is blocked, you cannot be intimate with another person. And forgiveness requires intimacy. You have no energy left over because you don't even love yourself. And I know self-love is kind of a trigger keyword right now floating around, but it's very necessary. But you just can't have an excess of it. There can't be, because some people will be like, well, you can't have like an overactive heart chakra. And you actually can. It's where you become codependent, or you need the validation of so much love outside of you to feel what you haven't filled yourself through the solar plexus chakra. So I agree, like forgiving yourself first has to take place. And then you'll have room to forgive others because you'll have the compassion to support your ability to forgive.
Yeah, I know for me personally, just dealing with compassion, I had to learn what that was because I felt like the compassion that I was receiving was just more of, well, now you should feel obligated to, give me something in return, or there was some type of underlying motive behind that. So when I thought I was showing compassion, a lot of people called it weak. And then so because they're just like, oh, or they'll say that, well, a lot of people can kind of just take advantage of you or whatever it is. And really just trying to extend that generosity, you kind of get shut down being like, well, you're too soft. You need to be like this, or you too, whatever it is, to make you feel like, okay, well, now that I'm going to have to like retreat into this shell, and not be expressive, not let anyone in, hold this for a multitude of years, and then trying to raise a family with that mentality, and trying to uphold a house and trying to, progress in life. It's one of those daunting tasks that we don't even understand that we put ourselves in the first place. So for me, what I had to do is before I, learned anything about compassion, I had to really just kind of be my own best friend and just kind of view things within myself like, damn, like and then not only that, like low key, I even just congratulate myself still to this day. I'll pat myself on the back for just little things. Like when I made that organic protein shake, and everything, and I went out and got these minerals and wholesaled everything to, compact something that I feel like is going to uplift the community. I'm like, man, good job. That's why I listen to Larry June a lot, because he congratulates himself on everything that he does. Like, good job, Larry. But but ultimately, is definitely like something that became this subconscious thing that I will replay over and over again, to the point where it's like now I have this sense of encouragement that is always sustaining me, that I don't have to find, existentially or anything like that, which also makes me feel like my well is full. So now I don't have to try to take anything from my partner or try to encourage somebody else to encourage me, So because usually that can gas both of y'all out, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's definitely just taking in that interpersonal experience, loving yourself, having these mantras that you really are, believing what you're saying. Then when you start to feel that warm embrace of yourself, you now know what compassion is. Now it's one of those things where you can be more mindful of when you show compassion for others.
I would definitely say that that's a great way to build self-love, is separating self. And I think an easy way to do that is by acknowledging your inner child. So it's like, okay, it's hard for me to love myself, but what can I do that shows my inner child love? Like, little Makita, like, what would make her feel good, and it kind of separates you from yourself, which now the ego is no longer blocking you. So that was definitely a big part of my own like self-love journey, was inner child work, and recognizing that entity still exists. And I'm not just doing it for myself, but, my past selves, my future selves, things like that. So
we do everything intentional. So even when we started the Parallel Paths podcast, that's the reason why we had our 4-year-old selves up there. Because I know, personally speaking, I can look at a video or a picture of myself when I was a kid, and like you just see the purity and the joy or whatever it may be in that moment, and you're like, wow, what happened? And it's like, how do I recapture that?
Yeah.
And then you start asking yourself these deeper questions like, well, what did I enjoy back then? And that's where that inner child work comes into play. And we can definitely recommend some meditations later, but just meditating on certain things like that, whether it be an inner child meditation or even a Merkaba meditation, those are two of the tools that I've definitely used to do some of that work.
And I love the placing your hand on your heart, sending yourself love and compassion.
Yes. I think grief is a big thing too when it comes to the heart chakra. We have to grieve because it'll open up the space 100%. Like our energy can totally get trapped there when we don't grieve. And then the heart, the terms we use, oh, she's cold-hearted or he's cold-hearted, is because we've essentially got this stone casing that we put up as a way of protection, of course, but not realizing that we have to allow the grief to flow. We have to allow ourselves to actually sit with it and experience it so that the energy can then, we flow through, we feel it, it goes out the other end and we're rid of it. But when that energy just accumulates there, then we just become, we shut down that center and we're unable to open that space for somebody else. And we almost make them feel like they have to make the first move, so to speak. Like you're dating somebody, they got to say, I love you first. They got to show you, they got to prove all these things before you'll be willing to open up, because you feel like the last time you took that risk, you were hurt. There was grief that was involved. And, as a society that, we innately seek pleasure, nobody's looking to do grief because there's no pleasure in that. There's no fun in that. But I think, like Blair said, there's meditations that you can use. There are things that you can do to try to process through your grief, to open those things up. And grieving, it can be a lot of things. You can grieve from the loss of a job, the loss of a loved one. You can grieve the loss of a friendship. There's so many areas where we can experience grief and we may not be acknowledging it as that. And like for me, just like a small example, a few weeks ago, I had been trying to like switch up my diet some. And I noticed like some of the hesitation that I was having to implement certain things. And I really just realized it's grieving your old life or grieving a way that you're used to operating in, the convenience of just stopping at a drive-through or doing certain things. I realized I was having a hard time, like moving on from that. And it was like, wow, like, but I let myself sit there and sit with it. And then I realized, it's in my own time. When it's time to move on and to incorporate something new, you will. And for me, it was realizing not to look at moving on as a failure of some sort, because we tend to think, based on what society has shown us and taught us, is that if something doesn't last forever, you failed it in some sort of way. Like there's this unsaid proper ending to things. And it's like, no, when something ends, a relationship, a friendship, it serves its purpose, and then it's time to move on. We have to be ready to embrace. But that transition, it's okay to grieve what you're walking away from, so that you can, in a healthy way, close the chapter on that, or close the door, and then be able to walk into the new journey the proper way.
That's a good way to put it.
I think a lot of people might not even be aware of what they're saying to themselves because you're so distracted in all the distractions, and that's very intentional. So take time. That's why, like, when the whole lockdown happened, people were going mad because they're like, I have to be with myself. I have to sit with myself. There's nothing to do. And they saw that stuff come up, and that's what's supposed to happen. That's the detoxification process. Like, until it comes up, you don't know what is there, but be okay with that and know and trust that you can handle what is there. And it has to be handled and resolved if you want to get to a space of true peace and nirvana, like, in order to really enjoy this life, rather than fooling yourself into believing that you're enjoying your life and fooling yourself into believing that you're fulfilled just because you can go to yacht week or you can go to the basketball game and sit on, the court. Like, actually, it's much more fulfilling to know that your heart is full and that you are living a life, that is driven by truth, like love and desire, rather than what this material, what they're conditioning you to believe is fulfilling. But ultimately, you feel that emptiness, but you're not taking time to actually sit and be still to welcome that message that, hey, we're still empty. Because a lot of people, that means you got to take action. That means you got to make sacrifices. That means you got to stop hanging out with certain people, or you got to change lifestyle practices, right? So it's just get in meditation. If you truly want happiness, if you truly want to unlock your power, you have to be willing to really listen to what your heart is saying and trust yourself and be patient and compassionate with yourself in that process. But it's necessary.
I know everybody, we always talk about love and light and peace and all this stuff, but like, to find all of that, you got to go to the darkness. So I think that's one thing that even as society and how they program the masses is more so like everything is about the light, everything is like this, like that, but you need to go into the darkness. Jerica talked about it earlier, the primordial beginning of everything started in darkness. Everything emerges from darkness. So take that time, like Makita said, be still, go into that darker space and allow some of those thoughts to clear out. And like Jerica said, it's a detoxification process. For the ones who overthink, imagine those thoughts on a cloud and just drifting off. But it's vital in this time that you're able to be able to sit in silence and not be going stir crazy or having to constantly have stimulus in the background on, whether it be music or TV or somebody talking to you or whatever. In the end, it starts and ends with self.
I agree. It's important to do the work because essentially we're meant to do this thing life with other people. And the way we treat other people is a reflection of ourselves. And if we just turn on the TV and we can see how we're treating each other, we have to get those first three chakras together, because by the time we get to the heart chakra, we have to understand that separation is really an illusion. We've separated ourselves from nature. We separate ourselves from each other. We think we're separate from each other. We separate ourselves from the divine or the creation that created us. And I think that it's because we're not deeply rooted in our history, our lineages, where we come from, ourselves. And it reminds me of, for those of you that are into astrology, it reminds me of the axis of the 4th and the 10th house. Because the 4th house is about our ancestral lineages, it's about our upbringing, it's our roots. And then you have the opposite on the axis, which is the 10th house, which is what we're growing towards, what we aspire to be and how we show up in the world. So when we think of like the tree of life, you see that when it comes to the heart chakra, we're essentially the equation of both what's coming up and what's going down. And then you have us here in the middle. And so we grow in both directions. We grow towards the heavens, but we also have to be firmly rooted in who we are as individuals. And so if you guys look in your birth charts, whatever sign you have on the 4th house, take a look at it, because that's going to give you an understanding of your roots and your upbringing and where you're firmly rooted in, and continue to grow in that and learn yourself in that. That's where what your roots do. but then it should also mirror where you're going and where you're sprouting from. So like for me, I'm a Libra rising. So on the fourth house, fourth whole sign house, because that depends on the house system. But fourth whole sign house, I have Capricorn, which is ruled by Saturn. So I grew up in a household that was pretty much strict. There was a lot of order. Tradition was a very important thing. It's an earth element, so stability was very important. But then my 10th house is Cancer, which is water. It's more nurturing. Those are the things that I would be looking towards or growing towards. So I think when we consider the heart chakra, you're opening up the compassion to be a part of the unity of the whole, because once you get past the heart chakra, you're going outside the self at that point. But the heart chakra allows that meeting place where you can honor where you come from and your roots, but also integrate where you're going and what you're looking forward to. You can understand how to, in some ways, separate yourself from where you come from to find your identity, but to integrate into the world that is before you or that you're going towards. You're leaving the home to integrate and involve yourself into the world. So it's crazy, like the whole yin yang mix of it all, of being separate and then being together, to be separate again and then to come together again. And it's like this dance that we have. But I feel like the heart chakra is the good plateau of where we're able to do that. We see where we came from, we can look behind us, but then we also have this vision, and that's getting into the third eye chakra of where it is that we're going to. And we're able to communicate that, throat chakra. So
can we talk a little bit about the color and how that, like the significance of the color as it relates to the heart chakra?
Green is our heart chakra color. And some people will say for the high heart it's pink. But I like to look at it as green. I think green is such a healing color. We look at nature, that's typically the archetypal color for Mother Earth or for growth. And I think green vibrates with Yam. Is it Yam?
Yeah.
I think it vibrates with, yeah. Definitely a healing aspect to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it's pretty natural. You know, we think about all things, you know, come from love, this energy of love. And, you know, it's through love that things grow, like that things are nurtured. You know, you love a child, that's what nurtures it, helps it grow. So it only makes sense, the color of green. Yeah. But what about like some of the things that can cause that imbalance, right? You know, I think trauma is always something that, you know, is going to affect all of the chakras in some form. But anything that's happening that's affecting either your ability to love yourself, or you're getting messages that you're not loved by the world, you're not appreciated by the world, I think, you know, that would cause an imbalance.
Yeah, grief, not processing our grief will cause a block or imbalance in that chakra, and not being in a place to receive from others. Only thinking about the separation and of the self. And that goes back to some of the more patriarchal archetypes, where we live in a society that pretty much thrives on the growth of the individual. But if everybody's so focused on who they are individually, then we're neglecting the experiences that we're having collectively and how our actions affect other people. So you have to come out of the selfishness and allow yourself to see and make space for other people and how your actions affect them. So you're crossing that border. It's a lot less about self and a lot more about looking at how your relationship is to people that are outside of you. And so if we even think about it like from an age perspective, I would say the heart chakra starts probably around, I would say between the ages of like 4 and 7. I say it would really develop, because you're going from being an infant totally dependent upon your parents, which is very root chakra. It's all about survival. And then you're going into feelings. The baby is expressing things. They're mad, they're angry, they're sad, terrible twos kind of thing. And then they start getting the sense of identity. They start wanting to dress themselves, or they're picking out things. I like this food. I don't like this food. And then you have this compassion that arises with the heart chakra kind of awakening. And I think that's between ages of 4 and 7, because mommy, I drew a picture for you. Daddy, look what I did for you. You start seeing these sweet little things that kids begin to do, because now that they've got that solar plexus of identity, I know who I am. Who are you? They're in daycare. They're starting to be in the community and understanding like, oh, okay, so there's something outside of me and I can affect that something. You realize, oh, I have a brother, a sister. There are titles out here. We're connected in some kind of way. So I think there's kind of that going on. And we talked about the inner child healing. And I think, between 4 and 7, how were your parents in your community responding to you? Were you getting hugs? Were you, say, the firstborn, and because you had a sibling on the way, were you pushed to grow up quicker and therefore not getting the nurturing and compassion you needed because you had to move out of the way for the next sibling to come forth? You were suddenly required to not be a baby anymore. You were, we don't have time to cry about that. We got a new baby that's crying. So you gotta emotionally grow up quicker than what's expected. So I think that's kind of a good thing too, is to realize the grief and the compassion, understanding that transition between yourself and then realizing there's people outside of yourself and that we affect each other. The what do you call it? I want to say the auric field, but there's another word I'm looking for that's very strong in the heart chakra. Is actually stronger than the magnetic field.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually stronger in the heart than in the brain. So we start to realize through the heart how our auric fields can affect the next person. And so we understand the interconnectedness in that way. When we consider the breath of life, a lot of breathing techniques are used for heart chakra imbalances too, and paying attention to the breath, realizing where you hold your breath. Asthma is like one of the physical manifestations of a deficient or a wounded heart chakra too, because you're not catching your breath. There's so much grief that the essence to live, which is the breath, is absent, or it's constricted, or the body, the chest is caved in some kind of way. So yeah, the breath and the heart definitely have a lot to do with each other. When you consider like the heart or the chest area, the lungs and all of that, dealing with the heart chakra, you have the thymus gland that's sitting right there, which is very much connected to our immune systems. And when we consider, like, if we even look at the etymology of the word immune, from my understanding, you have in, which is like not, or the opposite of, and then you have munus. I want to say that's Greek. It could be Latin, but you have munus, which means like kind of like collective or like community. So when we consider the heart chakra being associated with the thymus gland, and the thymus gland having a lot to do with our immune system, the heart chakra becomes like a defense, and it's defending you or separating you. We talk about immune versus community, where there's the unity, the coming together, the com part, COMM, think common or same, oneness with community versus immunity. So your body is literally saying not of dis-ease. So, you have disease, but it's dis-ease. So your immune system or immunity is essentially saying you are not of, or not taking part of, dis-ease. So it's literally your defense system that's mixed in there, which is crazy. So your thymus is, it's essential. I think supports like the production of your T cells. So you think about like this pandemic that we're in, which had a lot to do with our immune systems. Then those that were trusting their bodies, they're essentially believing in a more natural way of healing. We believe in our immune system, which is going to keep us separate from dis-ease. And there's nothing outside of the body that's going to be able to help you regulate. It has to be an inside job. You have to do the work when it comes to your heart chakra and strengthening your immune system. When the heart chakra is deficient and you're absent of love, your immunity is low.
Oh yeah.
You're going to be sick. It's like your chest is literally open for anything to come through because your thymus, your defense is absent. It's not there.
I was gonna say, and one way to strengthen that too, I don't know if anybody's familiar with tapping, but if you tap the thymus and do it in about, I would say about 25 seconds per, but you can do that throughout the day. That'll not only calm you down, but it also strengthens the heart. And then of course there are different mudras. I think this is the mudra of Ganesh, but it's like interlocking your hands right, would be facing forward first. Then you do 6 deep breaths and then you flip it. And then left is facing out, another 6 deep breaths. But even just doing that every day, that's like a natural healing way to, because you're constantly pulling. So it's stimulating not only the heart on your hands, but it's almost like it's pulling your chest open at the same time too. So there's different mudras, different ways of tapping. It's definitely different ways for you to strengthen it.
So yeah.
I was gonna say one more thing was when we do Tai Chi, you know, the one where we're standing up and then we expand our hands this way, and then when we're exhaling, we bring the hands close together. Like just having that motion, that brings so much awareness to your breathing and your breath. So yeah, that actually helps too.
So I'm always the ones thinking about, okay, well, in what way as a system are they attacking this chakra? So we're talking about the heart chakra, we're talking about the importance of it in our immunity. We also know the heart chakra is represented by love, like our ability to give and receive love. And we know that love is the most powerful force. So I'm thinking about with this whole pandemic situation and how the jab was starting to affect people's heart, right? And how intentional was that? Like, was there some intentionality about that where that's the thing that's being depleted? So that way, you know, they already got us on fear. They already have the heart weak on fear. Now this jab situation and how it's affecting people's hearts.
I was just gonna say one thing you said, like, to me, it's almost contradicting, but at least my belief, it starts with self because you are affecting other people. So like if you aren't working on self and being selfish, then you can't necessarily influence others in a positive way per se. So I think it's just a matter of perspective and how you look at that. And then I want to say Dr. Alim El Bey, as well as, excuse me, Dr. Delbert Blair, they talked about it, but I could see what you said from like the 4 to 7 year range being like the micro level of the heart chakra opening. But like on a grander scale, they talked about each chakra being a 7 year interval. So that's why they always talk about the first 7 years of a child's life. They're the most influential. So that's why the root chakra in your foundation is constantly attacked, or whatever the case may be. You're going into school and you're getting hit with all these different challenges, whether it be at home, personally, whatever. So if you're doing it in 7 year cycles, you really wouldn't start working on your heart until what, 22 to like 28. So I think too, from an identity perspective, you think about going off to college, you're still trying to figure out who you are. That's still that solar plexus. And then you're cast into the real world, and then you're supposed to cope. And so I think it really just depends, again, on perspective and how you break stuff down, but everything goes in cycles. So whether it's a smaller cycle or a larger cycle, you're definitely going to be getting times where the heart is more influential than other chakras.
And that makes sense, because I think about when I speak to people who've had like this kind of awakening, they're on this path, it started in that, mid to late 20s. And then we think about, people talk about the midlife crisis. It's like, if you don't figure it out during that phase, then the next phase is going to be that midlife crisis. Cause you realize you've gone this long. It's like, well, now I got too much skin in the game. I probably got a family that I'm not really, invested in. And I probably in a job that I'm really not invested in because I didn't listen to myself earlier in those mid 20s. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to give the people some recommendations for foods, crystals, physical activities, anything like that?
Foods, of course, anything green, spinach, kale,
zucchini,
pickles.
Yeah.
I used to love pickles growing up.
So cucumbers.
Cucumber, yeah.
Celery. Shoot, we talking about powders
Kiwi.
like ashwagandha.
Mm-hmm. I was about to pull out my herbs, so never mind.
Go ahead. I was just thinking ashwagandha. We got I don't know why I'm drawing a blank, but even anything with like kelp, anything seaweed related, anything from the sea, any leaves, bay leaves, especially like if you're a bean person, little side tidbit, but throw some bay leaves in there, helps with the gassy problems that a lot of people face when eating beans. But yeah, man, it's even the weeds that you see in your yard. They told us for years that dandelions were weeds and that you should be spraying to kill them, when dandelion is one of the most powerful herbs out there. You can make a dandelion tea and cure just about anything. So when we talk about the color green, that's abundance. That's everything around us. So especially if you're in a green state, just get outside in nature and start connecting a little bit more and just seeing what's around you. I'm looking at an aloe plant right now. Aloe is another good one. It heals numerous things. So it's stuff around you. It's just educating yourself on it and being curious. And like Jerica and Makita talked about, that having that childlike curiosity, honoring that inner child and asking questions. That's really what it is. It's asking questions and being curious and just taking each day as a learning opportunity, as well as each moment. So not only a learning opportunity for learning self, but like Jerica said, when you are interacting with others or in the presence of others, you're able to balance how you're feeling. And like we talked about, balancing those thoughts and emotions in that center place, which is the heart.
Mm-hmm.
The key thing here that I heard was go outside. Going outside pretty much will go ahead and activate all of these for you. Just give
nature
it
is
time
the
and
medicine.
practice. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And I would say, because I've done a lot of like self-love work and led people through self-love seminars. One of the tips, as far as if you're having a hard time feeling that love for yourself, like in relation to the heart chakra, if you're having a hard time feeling that sense of love, looking in the mirror, feeling that sense of love, the easiest way I feel like to activate that is by going outside, like by being in nature, because again, you're seeing something naturally beautiful, something that's always giving to you. You go outside, nature is giving you oxygen, nature is giving you plants, it's giving you food, it's just giving to you. And that's simply an expression of love. And then of course you get to enjoy the beauty of nature. It's always showing, the sun is always rising. So if you're having a hard time evoking that feeling of love within yourself, get out in nature, because nature is the most purest form of an expression of love that we have access to all the time.
I was gonna say one more thing we didn't hit on that we probably should hit on in every episode when talking about chakras, but sound healing. Oh, yeah. I know Makita uses sound bowls and all that stuff, but even getting tuning forks and applying that directly to the heart or to whatever chakra that really you want it attuned for, but listening to 432 or 528 or grounding resonances. So anything with sound.
Mm-hmm. And of course, I have some crystal recommendations. So today, I'm going to recommend the number one at the top of the list. This is Dravite, which is also known as brown tourmaline. And the reason why I recommend this one is because dry eye is emotionally grounding for one, but it helps to integrate the shadow self. Blair had talked about how you have to be willing to go into the darkness. And this is going to help you to do that and learn how to integrate it in a loving way, in a way that's not going to be so judgmental, and allow space for that self-love and that self-healing. And another thing I like about it is that it grounds you enough to where it will prevent you from ascending before your time, so to speak. Really giving you time to pause right there where you are, instead of trying to jump to the higher chakras before you're actually ready. So that's brown tourmaline. I also recommend Apache Tear. Apache Tear, I've mentioned in other episodes how it helped me to go through a divorce, because it helps with grieving and just allows space for you to grieve, and to really process the emotions what took place to make you so emotional, and helps you to really sit with your emotions and actually understand what caused them. And it's real gentle. The energy around that one is more gentle. This is actually Super 7, but the only reason I'm bringing it up is because I'm recommending goethite, which I do not have, but there is goethite inside Super 7. And I like it because it just helps make you aware of what the wounds are by bringing it to your consciousness. And rhodochrosite. This one, a lot of people are familiar with. This is a good one. It's just self-love, helps with compassion. And then the last one is kunzite. And kunzite, I don't know, the camera may not be picking it up, but kunzite, it's kind of like a really light purple color. This one is more connected with divine love, divine energy. So like when we were talking about going outside and connecting with nature, this allows that. I like to say with this one, there's a beholding to it. And when I say behold, it's speaking without making sound, like what Anahata is actually about. So when you consider the heart chakra being associated with the air element, when you stand outside in nature, you feel this caressing when the wind blows. There's this embrace that's unsaid. It's something that's being done not on the physical level, but more on the emotional level, although you can feel it physically. It's the feeling that you get when you're a father and your daughter is getting married and you see her in her dress for the first time. There's an awe that's just this gaze. You don't even have to touch her, there's this feeling that you get, or when you see your kid getting ready for prom and they walk down the stairs and there's this beholding that you have, and kunzite touches on that. It's the unsaid embrace. It's the saying without saying. So when you're outside and you feel the caress of the wind, think of that as Mother Nature, the ultimate mother, really embracing you and nurturing you and pouring back into our heart space, where we feel empty. So kunzite is good for that.
Amazing.
I was also going to say psilocybin works with that too.
Hey, can't forget about that good cannabis too, man. Can't forget about that green, man.
We've had many of those same experiences, and we were in settings where it was nothing but trees and things in Oregon and everything, and it was raining too, and we felt like the rain was speaking to us in a sense. But
that psilocybin will open your heart.
It sure did.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, y'all. Well, my computer's about to die, so let's get on out of here. But that is what we have for you on the heart chakra. I hope you all receive this, and we would also love to hear from you on what you are doing to keep your chakras in balance. So be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Comment. We want to hear from you. So until next time.
Bye, guys.